We've just come back from the Erste Bank Open in Vienna, where we went as a family. There's 5 of us. And the question is, why would a family go to a professional tennis tournament and what do you get out of it? So when I was a kid, I was really into tennis. Like a lot of juniors, you get really into it. And I went to Wimbledon a couple of times. And, tennis was, at least for a short part of my life, it was my life. My wife, she, I believe, always liked tennis somehow. I don't really quite know how we started, but we started playing tennis together. And then about 3.5 years ago, we decided to join a tennis club, and we've just been going for it, where we went during COVID, my wife and I, to Wimbledon. And we kind of commented and said, how are we going to take kids to go to tennis tournaments, particularly overseas? Like, they're not going to sit there for the whole time. It's going to be, it's going to be hard work. And we thought we couldn't do it. But then in 2023, we decided as a family to go up to London, and we watched the Billie Jean King Cup. We watched GB play Sweden, I think it was. At the time, my kids were 6, 7, and 9. They got all dressed up in the Union Jack stuff and all the GB gear. And we kind of went, they weren't very expensive tickets, to be honest. We kind of thought, do you know what? Let's just go and see how this goes. We didn't really know how it was going to go. We kind of thought, this isn't going to last that long. And I'll tell you what, we watched 2 matches, and I think we were there for about 4 to 5 hours, and they had the best time ever. And I think that's when we realized, we were like, we can do more of this. After that, we've now been to Birmingham for the WTA a couple of times. We have been to the Paris Masters. We've been to the Erste Bank Open in Vienna as of last week. We've also been to Mouratoglou's UTS. We went to the finals in London last year. So as a family, we've been to 6 tournaments, Paris Masters and Vienna. The Erste Bank Open, we went for 4 days each in total, so pretty full on. So what's it like? What have we learned? And how come it appears that as a family, we're really hooked, even though our kids are relatively young? So the first thing is to note that we've actually done quite a few indoor tennis tournaments. So the UTS, the Billie Jean King Cup, Paris Masters, the Erste Bank Open. Frankly, those tournaments are a bit more like a party. They have the lights, they have the music. There's a lot of buzz going on in those. But that said, some of the bigger outdoor tournaments are starting to really bring that in. I think they're really understanding, let's face it, you go to these events, yes, to watch great tennis, but also to be entertained. But besides that, with any live sport, there's actually a fantastic atmosphere. When you get a really great match going on and you've got a crowd that actually wants to be there, we are cheering away. We're getting caught up in the moment, but so are the kids. And when they learn, for instance, when you go to Paris and it's the ba 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 ba, allez. My son, who last year, was 7 in Paris, was going for that. Or my daughter's going, come on Mazzetti, or come on Yannick, and screaming out. They're having just the time of their lives. That's not unique to tennis. The atmosphere really gets hold of you when you watch great sporting events. But also, I think part of it is that you're actually always quite close to the action. It's something for me personally I've been quite surprised about. When you watch tennis on TV, you can see it and you can watch and you can get some detail. But when you're actually there live, the amount of detail you get, the closeness you feel to the court, even of course when you'll see our players walking around the tournaments, you get your photos taken with them. It's, you're right there, part of the action. And it's like you can really see it, hear it, smell it, even touch it, It's right there. It's a very immediate. And I think something is you kind of start to feel very much part of it yourself. And I think, again, similar to a lot of live sporting events, there is something about live tennis. I'll be honest, my kids, and, we'll watch tennis on TV. My wife and I, we love it. It's like all we have on is tennis. I've got the tennis on right now, the Basel Open in Switzerland. But the kids, sometimes it's, a little bit harder for them to get into it. They're not going to just sit down. Maybe they'll sit and they'll start watching and they get into it, but sometimes they don't really necessarily enjoy it. And I can sort of sympathize with that, because sometimes you just don't get that same connection to tennis on TV. When you're there, the nice thing about live tennis is you can choose to watch whatever aspect you want. If you want to focus on actually the crowd and see how people are enjoying it, if you want to look at the arena and look at the lights and listen to the music, if you want to focus on just one of the players and watch their footwork, or just watch how they return serve and how they recover, if you just want to watch for when one person's serving and then for the rest of it you want to kind of switch off or go for a walk, you can do that. It's absolutely okay. And I mean, something I really resonate with there is, I've watched a lot of tennis on TV. I've watched Sinner on TV before, and you look and go, yeah, he's fantastic. When you're actually there in person, I was amazed at how different it was to see the guy. And I think it's the fact that you're seeing it in 3 or maybe 4 dimensions. You're looking across and you can really see the sort of the width, the depth. You're really getting this sense of this bigger picture, but then putting in those other sensory inputs, the sight of it, the smell of it, the looking at even just the humidity in the air coming over, creating a bit of a cloud. It's, those things add to where it just creates a very different experience. And for me, watching Sinner live was just night and day better in terms of watching him on TV. But then of course there's also the magic of the fact that when you go to a big tournament, it's not like a football match where there's stuff going on around, but you turn up, you go and watch the match, you get half time, you might get a hot dog or a burger, and then it finishes and you walk out and there's the crowds and there's the atmosphere. At a tennis tournament, you go there the entire day. You're probably gonna turn up. Let's say if you go to Wimbledon, you're gonna get there at 10, 10:30, and you might be there till 11 o'clock at night. At the Erste Bank Open, doors opened at 1. One day we left there at 11 o'clock. You're there for 10 hours. And it's not just the fact that you've got the tennis outside, you have lots of stalls, you've got all the sponsors which are setting up games, you can go to the shops, you've got the drink, food, and then just the general buzz. And then every once in a while you see a player walking through or they're there doing signings, and it's like you're there and it's 10 hours of or more of just complete sensory overload. It's a little bit overwhelming at times, but at the same time, it's absolutely just fantastic. And I think something when we have gone, particularly when we went to the Paris Masters, when we went to the Erste Bank Open last week, we were there for 4 days for each of them. And I'll tell you what, by the 4th day, it's a slog, but we kind of felt like we knew every single part of the court, of the seating, of the outside, of the different levels. It was like we were absolutely a part of the place. We knew, how it was going to go in terms of the schedule and what happens before when the ball kids come out and they call all their names and cheer them on, and then they have the tick-tock countdown before they do the music to introduce the players. It's like you get to know what's going on and you feel like this. It feels like you're almost at a second home. And for me, I think this is what's beautiful about tennis, is that you don't just watch it, you really experience it. And you're not just watching. I think for most people who are there is going to be so many tennis players who are watching tennis players, and we're all there for so many different things. Like, yes, we're here to watch the tennis, yes, we're here to have entertainment, maybe have some drinks and some fun, but also there's the learnings you take and kind of go, what can I learn from these players, and who am I going to kind of watch and follow that I might take something of theirs into my game? So my big reflection and takeaway is that, and one thing I haven't talked about is, these aren't the cheapest things in the world. But then if you consider you're there for 10 hours, you're having an absolute whale of a time, you could argue and say, that's not actually terrible considering you're getting to see some of the best tennis players in the world. But then at the same time, I do appreciate, for example, when we went to the last Birmingham WTA, which was 125, they also had a challenger on for the ATP. And I tell you what, the level of tennis even at a challenger was absolutely fantastic. And the tickets for that, that was probably about £80 for the 5 of us for a day. I would go and watch a challenger again, maybe not for 4 days, but I'd certainly go and watch a challenger for a day or two. So again, this next comment probably isn't so unique to tennis. Quite simply, whether it's a major event like Wimbledon or the US Open, or a Masters event, or an ATP 500 or a WTA top level event, or whether it's a smaller event, live tennis gives you something that you're never going to see on the screens, which is in essence this feeling of really being there and choosing what it is you want to get from it. And the nice thing is, watching my kids who have now, for example, at the Erste Bank Open, 4 days, we watched 14 matches, and they did not want to leave. I think they would have gone a 5th day. I think that might have killed me. For all of us, I would say, if you're thinking of taking kids to a tennis tournament, I'd say they've got to have an interest in tennis, but at the same time, there are certain events, maybe things like Mouratoglou's UTS, which is frankly, that is more pure entertainment. I'll tell you what, it might be worth taking your kids along. You may well have a really good time, and who knows, like us, maybe you're going to start a family tradition, which is at least once every year, we go off to a major tournament and park ourselves up there for about 3 or 4 days and make it a second home. So as always, if you've been to big tournaments, If you've taken your kids along and have got experience as a family of what it was like for you, love to hear your comments. There will be people out there who've gone to much bigger matches and tournaments than we have as a family. Would love to hear your experiences as ever.